Hello everyone, and welcome to the second part of the mental skills recap. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the things we discussed in weeks 6 through 10. In week 6 we talked a little bit about activation, which is kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum from week 5 when talking about stress management and finding ways to perhaps calm down. Activation is another way of saying energy levels. So if you ever have that feeling when you get out and you play and you just can't seem to find the energy, you're feeling a bit flat, well, this is when we have to deal with finding a way to become more activated. Some of the signs that perhaps you have low activation, maybe you're not moving your feet very well, maybe you one of those players that has a slow start in their matches. It's difficult for you to find a rhythm early on. The way we can deal with this is finding ways in order to perhaps get ourselves a little bit more energized and ready to go before we play. You know, again, if you are a slow start or if you're someone that takes some time to get warmed up when you play, perhaps you can increase your energy before you go out there by doing a specific warm-up. Maybe you jump rope, maybe you run a little bit on the spot, or you shadow swing. Some other things you can do, you can have a little bit more positive self-talk, have some body language, you can move around, you can jump up and down, anything really just to kind of get you in the right frame of mind and help you feel a little bit more energized before you play. It leads us to the question though, how much energy do you need on a tennis court? Is everyone the same? Obviously the answer to that is no. Just look at the pros for an example. You have someone like Nadal, where his energy levels seem to be extremely high all the time. Serena Williams, someone again who is a very high energy player. When her energy levels aren't particularly high, I don't think she plays as well. And then you have other players on the other end of the spectrum where someone like Roger Federer, who's just a little bit calmer. It's not that he's not out there trying, but for him, you know, finding the optimum energy level might be something a little bit less than, say, one of his major rivals, Nadal. Again, so no two people are alike. You really just have to find what works for you. You also have to understand that during a match, maybe, there's peaks and there's valleys. Sometimes you have too much energy. Sometimes you don't have enough. It's all about making adjustments and making sure that you are very aware of where you stand. Again, if you have too much energy and you're feeling a lot of nerves, a lot of stress, perhaps find ways to calm down. If you're the other end of the spectrum, if you're going out there and you just don't feel like competing and it's hard for you to get going, find some ways to get energized. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's very individual, but we have to get in there and we have to find a way to make those adjustments. Week 7 was emotional control. I feel that this was a very interesting discussion for a lot of people because when you look at junior tennis as a whole, there is a lot of emotion out there. There's a lot of banging of rackets or shouting or in certain circumstances crying or getting very emotional on the tennis court. And that's not to say that we can't experience these things. We can't experience the emotions. To say not to feel the emotions or to block the emotions, it's not realistic. Emotional control is mastering those emotions. It's understanding that once you feel the emotion, how to deal with it, how to turn it around, and how to use it as a positive versus acting out upon that emotion. Typically when you miss a shot in tennis or you lose an important point, players get angry or they get frustrated and they'll bang their racket or hit the ball in anger, maybe let out a scream. And everything that we're dealing with in emotional control is finding a way to take those emotions, to accept them, to experience them, but not to let them control us, to find a way to stay calm and to turn things around. Use some of that emotion to get to put ourselves in a position to be successful moving forwards with the upcoming points. There are a lot of pros out there that do a good job. They may get upset for a point or two, but then they utilize that, they turn it around. Novak Djokovic, he's no saint. He'll get out there and he will bang his racket or get angry. But then after that release, then he's very, very good at focusing back on what he needs to do. Someone like Roger Federer, who for the most part seems pretty calm. He doesn't seem to let things get to him. As a young player, he had somewhat of an anger management problem. He would be very easily affected by his emotions. It took a lot of hard work for him, and he actually met with a sports psychologist to work on this. It's for some of us, it's harder work than others. Our first instinct sometimes is to get very angry and emotional. And what we really need to try and work on is accepting that emotion, finding out, what we did wrong, and making a plan not to repeat it. Some of the things that can help us with these, controlling these emotions is not immediately reacting, finding a way to breathe deeply after a point, maybe look at our strings or use the towel, just to, if nothing else, just calm us down and get us ready to think about the next point. Positive self-talk, making sure we talk to ourselves in a very positive way between points. And again, creating good habits so that even when we are faced with these emotions, whether it's anger or frustration or fear, when we get to tough points, then we are able to navigate our way through. Again, don't try and stop feeling emotion. It won't work. Just find a way to use the emotion and control it before you start the next point. Week 8, we talked a little bit about confidence. We define confidence. What is confidence? Well, it's the belief in your abilities to succeed. Why is it important in tennis? Well, it's important in all aspects of life, all aspects of sport, but because tennis is an individual sport, or the very best case scenario, a two-person sport when you play doubles, being confident on the tennis court has a direct relationship to performance. What are some of the things that reflect, a player that has a lot of confidence? Well, maybe they're out there playing relaxed, aggressive tennis. They show increased focus. Maybe they have an increase in effort that they put forwards, both in practice and in matches. They're able to stay focused and committed during the matches. They stick to the game plans. They're playing to win, not trying to avoid losing. And another characteristic that's very important is they don't give up. If you're confident and you believe in your ability to win, then just because things aren't going your way or just because you're not winning at the moment doesn't mean you'll give up. On the flip side, some of the characteristics of tennis players that perhaps have some low confidence, they play better when losing than when they're ahead. They've got nothing to lose, so they can go out there and swing freely. Perhaps they find it tough to close out matches from winning positions. Again, they're better in practice than they are when they get out onto the match court. This is a favorite one of mine. They overthink. The old paralysis through analysis, where you put yourself in a position where instead of just letting your instinct take over and play the way you can, you're trying to overanalyze everything you're doing. And some players, when they have low confidence, they look like they just don't care. They want to show everyone that because they don't care, it doesn't matter if they win or lose. And that generally, again, is a sign of someone that's low in confidence. So what are some of the things you can do to increase confidence when you're out on court? Well, think of past successes. We've all had successes and failures on the tennis court. And it's important that we remember the good times. It's important to remember when we've had those successes and how it made us feel and what our confidence levels were during those times. It's also good to watch successful people. If you have someone that you look up to, if you like certain professional tennis players who are successful, watch them, see what they do, see how they act, see what they do in between points, or quite frankly, see what they do when they're losing, see how they're able to turn things around. This one's an important one. Have people around you, have friends, have family, have coaches that are positive people, that are encouraging you, that are helping you understand that you're not always going to play at your best, but with some confidence and with working together, you can find a way to just really find that confidence, even when you're not winning, even when results are not going your way. So again, it's important to have a good team of people around you, and above all else, practice. Practice the positive self-talk. Practice, being confident and positive, even when you're not playing your best tennis. It's like anything else. If you practice it enough, if you rehearse it enough, it will become second nature. And the last thing we discussed when we were talking about confidence is overconfidence. Can you be overconfident? Is it a bad thing? The answer is yes. I do believe you can be overconfident, and it's not always a positive thing. It can lead to an unrealistic view of the level of your tennis. Certainly can lead you to a lack of preparation, or perhaps even underestimating your opponent. It is important to be confident, but if you ever get to the stage where you think you're significantly better than someone or your upcoming opponent, then you're just unfortunately setting yourself up for failure. So find a way to be confident, find a way to keep building up your confidence, but don't let it get to the stage where it stops you from doing what you need to go out there to prepare and play your best tennis. Weeks 9 and 10, they tie in very nicely to everything that we were talking about up until this point. Week 9 was positive self-talk, whether it's external self-talk where you're literally talking out loud or shouting at yourself, or whether it's the internal self-talk, having that inner monologue, that second voice that you have conversations with yourself every day. Positive self-talk has a very, very powerful influence on the confidence and the motivation of an individual, some things we've already discussed. Negative self-talk is very, very common in junior tennis. It's a natural reaction. You miss a shot or you lose a game. The first thing we do is we talk negatively to ourselves. It's dangerous. The more you're negative to yourself, the more you say how badly you're playing or what a bad player you are, the more that tends to come true. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. With some notable exceptions, I would argue that at the professional level, a lot of the players are very, very good at talking to themselves in a very positive way. Again, there's a direct correlation. The players that are most confident, they're most sure in themselves. They don't let a bad shot or a bad game or even a bad set of tennis kind of get in the way. They will continue to talk to themselves in between points. They'll have that when that inner monologue pops up and it starts saying, "Oh my God, you're playing so badly today." Don't be afraid to have a conversation with yourself. It's important to control your thoughts in order for to set yourself up for success. Positive self-talk, it's a great example of you as a player taking control over the situation. It's an easy option to talk negatively to yourself. It's much more difficult to stay positive and have a good conversation with yourself. Positive self-talk tends to be realistic. It looks to achieve things that are well within your grasp. A lot of negative self-talk stems from unrealistic beliefs. I must play perfect tennis, or I'm playing so badly, I'm going to continue to play badly the whole match. Even for some people, my performance, it reflects who I am as a person. That's a bit extreme, but a lot of players will feel that their tennis is reflective of who they are, or how they're doing as a person. So it's important to understand that negative self-talk, ranging from the I suck at tennis all the way through to you're not a good tennis player, you're never going to be good at this game. It's very destructive, and a lot of it is based upon things that aren't realistic. It is important that the positive self-talk is believable and it's realistic to you. Saying things like, my serve is awesome, my serve is awesome, my serve is awesome, that's not going to work. It's better than saying, you're going to double fault, you're going to double fault. But saying things like, if I focus on a good ball toss, I'm going to hit a good serve. Or if I put a lot of spin on this ball, I'm going to make more serves. My first serve percentage is going to go up. Again, if you speak to yourself in a realistic way, in a believable way, then you're going to be able to maintain a high level of positive self-talk. Last but certainly not least in this week's recap is what we covered in week 10, and that is positive body language. What is body language? Well, body language is non-verbal communication. It doesn't matter if we're talking about sports or if we're talking about just the way that you hold yourself in everyday life. If you walk around with your shoulders slumped and you have a slow walk, then that tends to be an example of negative body language. If you're someone that walks around with your head held high, you walk quickly, your shoulders are up, that portrays someone who's more confident, who believes in themselves, who's a positive person. And your body language, not only is it important to help you understand how you're feeling, but it also gives other people an impression of how you are. And that's especially important when you're playing against someone, your opponent. It's important to show them that you have positive body language. But before we even get there, why is it important to have positive body language? Well, if you don't and you have negative body language, obviously it leads to damaging your self-confidence. It can reduce your own levels of energy, and it certainly, as we discussed, it can boost your opponent's belief that they're going to beat you. On the other hand, if you have positive body language, it sends the message to yourself and to others that you're in control. I'm in charge. This is going to go the way I want it to go. It can help you remain in focus. It can, again, maintain your confidence and help grow it in no uncertain terms. It's very psychological, but if you have good, positive body language, even if you're not feeling good inside, it helps you build that confidence. You're acting as if you are confident. You're acting as if it doesn't matter that you just made a mistake, right? So not only does it have the benefit of showing your opponent that you don't care that you made a mistake, you're still confident, you're still going to win, but it's also communicating with yourself that you're positive and you're full of confidence. What are some of the signs of negative body language? Well, we discussed some of them, walking slowly, head down, shaking your head negatively. In terms of tennis, your racket, maybe it's pointing towards the ground. This is a favorite one of mine. I've been known to do this. Putting your hand on your face in disbelief, covering your eyes, throwing your arms up in the air in desperation. All signs of negative body language that paints a picture of someone that's not feeling good. Again, on the other side, you've got signs of positive body language. Someone who's, again, walking tall, shoulders are high, fast walk perhaps, bouncing on their toes, fist pumps, rackets in a positive position. The eyes are focused on the court or maybe on the opponent, certainly you're looking up. You're never looking down at the ground. And again, it's so important. It's important of you to be aware of your body language, as it keeps things positive. It's very often overlooked. If you study matches of fellow juniors, you can tell a lot. It's very, very easy in junior tennis to tell who's winning and who's losing just by focusing on the body language. And if you can be one of those players where it's hard to tell if you're winning or losing just because your body language is so good, you're going to give yourself a huge advantage. And again, putting everything together, of the weeks we've discussed, it's important to understand that, understand the emotions that you're feeling on a tennis court, and apply both positive self-talk and positive body language. It really does help convince the subconscious that things are going well. Even if they're not, or even if they're not going as well as we think, it's the difference between staying confident enough to turn things around, or putting ourselves in a position where, we're beaten before we've started. The whole idea of these courses is to get to a position where mentally we can stay in the game and we can turn things around when previously perhaps we weren't able to. So that concludes part 2 of the mental skills recap. Again, if any of you have any questions about the things that we've discussed or mental skills in general, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'll take some time and reply to you and answer any questions you have. Thanks again, guys, and I'll speak to you all soon. Take care.